Organizing and storing Lego pieces is really important when it comes to efficient building, and especially if you are selling pieces, possibly from a brickling store, you want to have a good system in place to be able to know where your inventory is located. That comes down to a variety of different storage sizes. That's what I want to talk about today here on Brick System Brothers. My name is Nathan Masters, and I want to walk you through my storage setup. I have a variety of different capacity bins to talk about. Kind of two main camps, so a smaller camp and a larger camp of bin sizes. We'll cover that. And I also have everything in unit of liters volume-wise, so we can get back to a common denominator there and take a look at how things actually compare with actual numbers, and just kind of cover the different bases, different storage techniques that I use that might be applicable to you. The other thing you want to keep in mind is, what does your space look like? So I have a lot of vertical room here and a fair amount of kind of a footprint, but a lot of what I do has drawer stacking, and focusing on a specific type of unit is what has worked for me, but you want to keep in mind that might not be what's best for your specific area and your storage needs. So kind of take this information, apply that to however you have your stuff set up. So starting at the smaller end of the spectrum for actual volume, I wanted to look at some of the offerings from Acromills, and then kind of the base size here is coming from a 64 drawer unit, which looks like this one that I have. I do just have one of these, and so far I like it for certain applications, but I think the 24 drawer unit is a little better in terms of overall versatility, and it accommodates a lot of different size parts. In fact, this width right here, it's just about perfect for elements that are 16 studs long. So that is a really useful dimension to have. It's also true for this one, but the way that this width works out gives it enough room for 6 studs either way. So the Acromills drawers I have found to be very useful over the years, and that is something that I've put a lot of resources into as a storage solution. So looking at actual volume units, the small one seems to be about 1/4 of a liter, so 0.25, and the larger, slightly larger one is about 0.7 liters, so about 3 times as large. And for a reference, if you're not familiar with liters, this water bottle is 500 milliliters, which is 0.5, so it would be somewhere in between these two, and that seems somewhat intuitive. So that's kind of where we're starting off. Now, if you want to go smaller, one of the things I use for smaller than this is tackle boxes. I'm actually not going to look at tackle boxes today, but Acromills does include some dividers in the back of their units, and these can be kind of like cut out with scissors or knife, and then this gives you an opportunity to reduce sizes even further. So the smallest you can go here is splitting the small drawer in half, splitting the large drawer in half. Something else that I do is I have these inserts, and this is from a different type of container, but basically these have just about the right dimension to go halfway in on either side here. And this is something I don't use a lot, but one of the applications, just as an example here, for some of my bows, small curved slopes. Most of the bin here is these 2x2, but up in the top I did want to separate the inverted bows, and then in this small cup I've got the bows with the cut on them. So this is a way to keep similar parts in similar families together, but not use up 3 drawers, because these 2 smaller ones don't need that much volume. So looking at this kind of standard Acromills, this is what I use the most. Most of my storage is organized in this section. Similar volume can be found in kind of this container, Tupperware, whatever you want to call it. And then something else I brought for the video is this fastener container. This is stuff that I've ended up with over the years working construction, so I ended up with a couple of spares. Once we use the screws out of here, the fasteners, this is just empty, but it's somewhat durable, and it's got the nice screw top on here. So I actually use these for parts that don't get as much traffic. I just want a place to store everything that's the same part type. So these 2x2 with the hole in them. Another good example would be these older octagonal profile, kind of all in the same part family here, not sorting all the way down to individual part types, but I can keep everything together. It's just about the right volume. Again, all three of these containers are about 0.7 liters. Working our way up the scale, the next one I have is what I call the lunch tray, or kind of a medium-sized drawer here. Right now I'm using this size to store my chairs and some of my smaller panels. This is stuff that I don't want to be using as often because these are kind of tucked away, out of the way in the storage room here. But it is a good step up from the Acro Mills drawer size when I need something a little bit larger, but don't want to necessarily jump all the way up to one of my larger bins, one of those larger sizes. These trays I actually use as more of a floater, and what I mean by that is this is something that I need to access a lot, but the part volume is still too high for the Acro Mills. So they go into this open top tray. It's very accessible, but what ends up happening is they get kind of shuffled around, stacked on top of things, different places. I try not to have too many of these going at once because it does crowd up the usable area on the building desk and other things like that. These are clocking in at about 1 liter. Okay, let's jump up half a liter to this drawer unit here. This is actually Acro Mills, so from the same company that does the standard one that I use. But as far as I can tell, this is kind of a retired product. I haven't seen any more of these around. This is a 1.5 liter drawer that actually goes to a small cabinet. I like these because there's a lot more volume here, but the front profile is actually about the same as the standard. So if I've got all the same part type in here, this works really well for kind of keeping that front profile reduced. I know everything in here is about the same part. For a while I was using this for plates. When the plates upgraded from Acro Mills, they went into here. Actually, the plates have upgraded again, so right now I'm using these for tiles, and it's just about right in terms of the volume that I need for a specific tile size, and also still accessible. The drawer system I like. It is robust. I found this at a surplus store, so keep your eye out for this kind of stuff that can be useful. It's going to be more of a one-off, so yeah, it doesn't integrate as well with the rest of my storage, but it's still useful in terms of holding parts. That's what I need it to do. The next one up is another fastener container. This one I've just started using. I call these the hanging gardens, and that has more to do with how I use them in my storage. Right now they are hanging underneath my main row of Acro Mills, so they're very accessible. I leave the lids off of them so I can get in and out easily, and it's just a good spot to have these at the moment. So I definitely like these in terms of the next size up. Once the Acro Mills get too full, this is a very natural progression into the next size up. It leaves plenty of room for part expansion, but it's still not taking up a lot of real estate on build areas, build tables. When you get to something this deep, just a note to keep in mind, if you are going after a part that's kind of towards the bottom, you might have to start pairing this up with a floater, a larger floater, and then you'll be dumping into this floater. You'll be looking around. Once you got what you need out, you dump them back in. So kind of a two-part process here. But this is nice for storing things compactly. Volume here, slight step up at 1.6 liters, so about the same going from the drawer to the open top container system here. I also wanted to mention our official Lego storing options, and these are the pick and build wall cups sold in the Lego store by volume. As far as I can tell, I actually tested this out with one of these water bottles. This is exactly half a liter, and it seems like it fills the small cup up exactly. So the small cup would be half a liter, and this was to the brim with surface tension. So I'm pretty sure these are exact measurements. And then the large cup actually twice that volume, clocking in at exactly 1 liter. So you guys go ahead and try that out if you're curious about those volume measurements, but as far as I can tell, that's what we have here. So half a liter and 1 liter from the official options. I actually don't use as many of these. Part of that is because I don't have as many. I do buy pieces from the Lego store, just not in the same capacity that I do bulk. So most of my storage options I focused on going with the Acro Mills route. One part I do have in here right now is the 1x4 Palisade. These recently got upgraded from an Acro Mills drawer. So again, going from the 0.7 liters to the 1 liter was kind of a necessary step. These were getting over capacity, but I don't know if I'll have these in here a long time, especially if I'm bringing in new pieces of this type. This cup is already full, so too many more pieces and this will have to go up a step. So let's hit that upgrade button. This is the second family or kind of group of bin sizes. This is a larger size. There's kind of a nice divide between the kind of 2 liters or less, and then you go up a step to almost up to 5 liters right away. There is one size, it's kind of an intermediate that I wanted to mention. I call this a little cube size. I haven't seen these recently, so this is definitely an older style of bin, but this is a 3 liter bin, and it definitely has its place in Lego storage. So this is one of the only ones I have right now that is a single part, and that's just a 3x3 engine. This size is just about perfect for that part at the moment. When you get more, I get more of these in, the next step up is going to be to the Stairlight. And that is a 5.7 liter bin. But when you get to this level, Stairlight actually puts the volume on in quarts. So from here on up, I'll be saying the quart volume and also the liter. But everything below that, you just kind of have to guess. Oh, I also wanted to mention, just as a point of reference, yeah, a liter, that's a good place to start, but how many pieces is that actually? So for this cup, I actually did a video a little while back about packing 1x4s, or not packing, but buying 1x4s, and I had about 200 in a large cup, and I just checked again with 2x2s, and it was 212 or so. So that's kind of a starting point. If you want to use that 4 studs worth of volume multiplied up to 200, if you want to take that down to 1x1 bricks, then you can multiply it by 4, so maybe 800 1x1 bricks in here, and then across the range you could make your own little chart, but if that sounds like too much work, 200 2x2 bricks in a liter, that's all you need to know. So moving on up, yeah, we've got the 3 liter cube bins. Very handy, a nice intermediate size. I don't use it very often, but when I need it, it's great. And then we jump up to 5.7 liters. This is also 6 quarts, so kind of the United States standard imperial system. Jumping on board with that. This is what I have started developing a secondary storage system for. Just recently I built kind of a special shelf on my new wall for this type of bin, and it kind of turns this into a drawer. So you have the smaller 24 drawer Acro Mills unit. It's very versatile, but when you get to some certain types of pieces like plates and slopes have now been upgraded to the Stairlight system. Something that takes up a lot more volume when you have them in quantity. So that's what I use these for a lot now. Definitely my preferred bin for this larger group. There is one that's a very similar size, also Stairlight. This is just up at 7 quarts, which is 6.6 liters. So it's definitely not a big jump in terms of overall volume from here to here, but it does have its uses, and it also falls into the Blue Handle family, which is kind of a line of the Stairlight drawers that have these handles that clamp on the lid. That can be handy if they're getting knocked over, which I try not to do too often. But yeah, there have been a few cases where I filled up one of these and I had just a few more pieces to go. Dumping it into this 7-quart bin was just about perfect. So again, don't use it a lot, but it's handy when I need it. Going up from there, almost double to 15 quarts, more than double I guess, and this is also 14 liters worth of volume. This is what I invested in for my job lot project, and I did my main category sorting into this size. And now what I use these for are the larger bricks. So this size is just about right for most of my large brick categories, starting with 1x2s, and then I also have this bin for 2x2, 2x4, 1x4, and 1x6, and that kind of is the right size for these bricks at the moment, without going too much larger. Once you get a lot of these bins stacking up, that does eat up some real estate on the floor or on a shelf, so trying to not necessarily try to get every part into the bin this large, but for these bricks it is working out pretty well. So 14 liters, again, Sterilite system here. There is a next size up that I want to talk about briefly. I don't know the exact volume for these. This one I actually use for washing pretty much exclusively, not so much for storage. So this particular size, pretty large. Once you get up to this point, for a single brick type, it's taking up a lot of room for one thing. A lot of people would actually go towards color sorting at this point, if you do want to break up a specific piece type even further, which, as you can see in here, already starting down the slippery slope. But another use that I have for these is when I do my sorting. This does help to give you a more workable size volume of parts. It's still quite a few, several thousand parts. At some point, I will probably have enough 1x2s to graduate from this 14 liter bin, but instead of going into the next step up, I think what I'd actually do is start breaking down by color. As you can see, I've already started doing that. So that is a slippery slope, but what's nice about going kind of back, you actually go back to the original in that case, and you go back to your acromills usually. So it kind of comes full circle, and now when you get back to this point, you end up with the same part, the same color. If you're investing in that much storage for sorting by color, you're probably selling on Bricklink, or you really need to have things broken down that much for your build style. Personally, I'd rather have everything more compact and consolidated, but still sorted out by part type, which is how most of it is right now. Again, some of the more uncommon colors is what I'm breaking out, especially transparent and retired. So if one of your bins is right on the edge and you don't necessarily want to start upgrading things, one of the most effective things you can do is do kind of a partial color sort. And this is something I did recently for my 1x1 plates. I actually went and split the solid and the transparent by color, just to help get these broken out a little bit more. Now the transparents are much more readily accessible, and I also have a little more room for solid 1x1 plates. So you don't necessarily have to sort out every color when you go from mixed to something different. It might be a good happy medium to split by transparent, or if it's a part type that doesn't have a lot of transparent pieces, you could look at splitting into retired colors. And then that will give you a little more room to work with in your main bin, and then the sorted one, it's maybe something you don't need to access as often, or it could be a smaller bin as well. So just an option there. I want to do an intermission and talk about bag storage for a couple minutes here. I use bag storage for overflow mainly. What I mean by that is my main group of the 1x2 Technic bricks are in an acromills unit on the storage wall, but it's one of those parts that you end up with a lot of, and at the moment I don't want to use one of my larger bins for this part. So I'm leaving most of them in the drawer, but anything that goes over that goes in a bag, and then this bag gets stored away.
probably not going to be as accessible. The issue that arises with this is when you end up needing a lot of these and you use up the ones in the drawer that's on the wall, well, these are the ones that are accessible and nice, and it's how it's supposed to be set up. But then you're not really sure what else you have because they're kind of packed away in bag storage. So I try not to do this too much, but it is a compromise that I've worked out when I don't, there's limited drawers up from here. And there's limited space in general on the wall, so I do have to prioritize certain things over others. Another one would be very high quantity of a single part in color that I got from the pick and build wall. So here are some 2x2 macaronis in tan. At some point I might use all of these in a mock, but right now I just need to store them, and a bag works really well for that. So I do have several different sizes of bags doing several different things. A lot of this ends up being stuff that's in transition. So as my slopes grow from acro mills to larger storage units, some of them have ended up in bags, and that's what's working right now. Eventually, some of this stuff will probably get moved on to larger storage units. Plates is a big one, 2x4s. But yeah, I do reuse the bags from Bricks and Minifigs. This is one from a Bricks and Pieces order, and then just in general, sandwich bags are pretty cheap. So transparent's a great way to see what's going on in the bag, and they're not terribly difficult to store. It's just there is that extra level of hassle zipping and unzipping every time. I will note that these can be combined with the next step up pretty successfully. If you start to kind of line up a row of bags in one of these larger Sterilite bins, that can achieve a similar thing that you have going on here with the divider in the acro mills, except in this case there are kind of these individual packages within a larger drawer unit. So this is something I haven't used a lot. It's a solution. I might experiment with it in the future, but just something to note. Kind of this soft storage option. Not everything has to be these regular bins. Can go with the bag sometimes. These can also get a hole punched in here and get hung up on the wall. That works as well. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with the soft storage option side. I wanted to mention it, but for now, getting back to the regular bins. So to wrap up today, I also wanted to mention what I call transient storage, and that's the idea of, as you are sorting stuff out in a somewhat central location, a lot of your final storage places are going to be out of reach, and that's where transient storage comes in really handy. If you have this close by to your sorting area, you can designate certain portions for certain types of pieces, and then you have this kind of secondary stage of sorting where you take that around the room later and put it in its final destination. So I use one of these trays. I got this at a store called the Container Store recently. I only got one because I hadn't used this product before, but I've been using it quite a bit. It'd probably be worth it to get a couple more down the road, but we don't have any locations locally. I'd have to get it out when I was going a little further sometime. So I use this quite a bit when I'm sorting. I also use this when I am building a set, and I use this to hold different part types for keeping them separate as I'm building. So it has plenty of uses, probably worth the investment if you're looking for something like that. And of course, this isn't all I use as I'm sorting out. I also have the floaters, like I said, these different tray sizes as well. But this is definitely an option. What's nice about this is it's also a drawer. So there's actually a drawer system that this works in, and I don't have any of the rest of the drawer system, so that's not how I'm using it. But down the road, if I invest in that, then I can use this as its actual intended drawer use. And I like the different options. You know, you have a spot for really long pieces up here. There's different sizes of trays here, and it's also not too deep, so you're not digging too far down. There's just enough room for a couple layers of parts. Really like the Container Store medium-sized drawer for transient storage. But that's what I wanted to cover today. 2 main camps. You've got your smaller, again, that .7 club with the standard 24 drawer Acro Mills bins. Some of the other stuff that's out there, Lego pad cups are out there. And then the smaller camp, you go up, you can graduate to a larger camp of pieces for larger capacity, and especially high volume parts is what I use those for a lot. But keep in mind, you've got to have the real estate for that. They take up a lot more room. Everything here can be expounded upon if you like. Leave a comment down below if you want to hear more about a certain bin size. You know, where did I get certain bins, certain sizes. So that's all fair game. It's all on the table. Just drop a comment down below. Thanks for watching today. We'll see you next time on Brick System Brothers.